as opposed to, well, there's going to be winners and losers, as opposed to, no, the systems that we've created have generated winners and losers.
Mm, mm, mm. Yeah, I
And
wonder.
it includes that all of us take some responsibility. And as I often say, we go back to power. We always have to question our relationship to power. I often say, when I find myself on, siding with the powerful, I always want to take a step back and be, what is this about?
Mm,
Is this the right sort of quote unquote, is this helping people, or is it because it's comfortable? Is it because it puts me in a position of authority
mm.
and power and I want to sort of be that person, as opposed to, am I a decent human being?
Yeah. Well, there's so much to unpack in this too, and I think it ties back to your value of understanding. In this case, trying to understand power dynamics and how that plays. Because I'll throw a couple things out there and let's see where we want to take it. But as you're talking, I'm thinking about one, back to that evolution. Like, why did we gravitate towards that? I often think our consciousness, right, our ability to be conscious, to think, to be as sophisticated as we are, and I use that term loosely, kind of in how our mind works. We've taken things, and you could look at it with like food, like, oh, we like food, that's good, and we've now optimized to the nth degree, almost to a flaw, to how we process food and how we create it. You can think about a similar dynamic with power, where power does have a function, it has a purpose, there's good in it, as you said, but our consciousness has become this curse where we take things that are good and we just take them to the absolute extreme, and we've realized, like, oh, power good, and people have optimized for that and become selfish and greedy with that power and made it into a negative thing. And I think there's something in the story about that's interesting. um, I also
Well,
think, yeah,
I'm
please,
going to
please.
stop you for a second, because that's a great analysis. However, you're
Yeah.
missing the structural component, you're
Mm,
missing society. So
mm,
if we were just born and we were not indoctrinated, for lack of a better word, or taught certain things, this would be an easier conversation. But the truth is, we are born into a structure, we're born into a society, and
mm.
based on where and how and the location, it will influence and it will teach us certain things. I think food is a very good example, because the truth is, we love food, and food has been now become this entity. I mean, so many corporations are putting so much sugar and so much salt into what we eat, that it's not, I love food and we've taken it to
Sure.
another level, as I love food, and these corporations that are looking to make money have also marketed food to us in a certain way. So it's always, the personal and political are always intertwined.
They are, and I was going to ask that because where I often like to think is, and tell me what you think about this, right? Because I've had similar conversations before where people will say, like, it's almost like a natural unnatural, where exactly what we're talking about with power, where I'm saying, like, we've optimized for power, and I think your call out is a good one to say, well, you got to think about the structure. But why did that structure develop, right? At the end of the day, that was a group, an aggregation or whatever of people who made a decision to say that's the structure that we're going to go with. So that's why I often come back to the individual level, because I think the individual level ultimately explains the structural or societal level. And it's the same dynamic, although I agree with you now. It's now gotten into a place where you're born and it's just what you do. It's not necessarily a conscious decision. But those structures were created maybe in that same vein, right? Like, it was a natural process for us to get to this point where we are in 2022. Natural does not place a value judgment and say it's a good process or it's,
Right.
anything like that, moralistic. But the fact that the Western world and much of the world lives in a capitalistic, kind of unequal society where racism does exist, that happened naturally through the process of humanity.
I
And I,
don't
I
know
get
about
that.
that. I'm going
Yeah,
to
yeah,
challenge
yeah.
you.
Come
I
back,
don't
please.
think
I
it
love
was natural. I mean, I think, think about colonialism.
Sure.
Think about patriarchy. I don't think those are I don't think, for example, men and women are not naturally less than men, but we
Of
believe
course.
that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I think they're different. I don't think we have done a good job learning about differences. I also think it won't that argument might be interesting. It's a philosophical one. It's not a
Sure.
very practical one, because my question to you would be, yes, and I am much more interested in, now that we're here, how do we get to somewhere else?
Do you think we need
Um,
to know? Because this is very much the spirit of the show, and I love this, by the way. It sounds like you're from New York, so I think you're right on the same plane with me. Some people could hear this and be like, "Ooh, they're disagreeing." I think this is awesome. So I hope you're in the same vein.
yeah.
Um, do you think there's anything to the point? Because how I tend to think very first principles. If we have a big problem, racism, societal issues, inequities, all that stuff, I want to understand its root. I want to understand the first principle of how did we get to this point? Because much to your point about understanding, to me, if I can understand that at its root, there's a better chance we'll get to a solution. So again, genuine question, not saying you're wrong. How do you think about that when you say like, I'd rather just think about where we are today and go forward? Is there value in looking backwards to say, but how did we actually get here? Because I worry about that sometimes, that people think, to your point about women, I think it's a great example. Like, who gives a shit how we got here, right? Like the patriarchy, all that stuff is clearly wrong. And I think that's obvious, right? There's so much wrong about that. We're here today. Obviously, women aren't worse than men. We should be able to just move forward. But to me, there's something in how we got there that I think we have to solve for if we hope to actually solve it going forward. And it might be something as simple and ridiculous as men were stronger. So, and we like power. And we just naturally always think our ideas are the best. So men were able to be like, no, 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 women, like we got this covered. Where even if it's as stupid as that, we need to swim in that and understand it so that we can fix it going forward. Do you think there's value in looking backwards in that way?